Today I wanted to do something a little more fun. This is kind of the first thing that I did on my own when I first started learning how to program back in 2022, and I made a trick button. And this button you was trying to click on, and every time you try to click on it, it would move, right? And it would just move, and you would never be able to click on it. And I thought it was so funny. I put it on my portfolio website. I laughed. I thought it was cool, and nobody else thought it was cool. I didn't have nobody to share it with. I was super devastated because I really liked it. And it was the first thing that I went out and kind of did on my own with no tutorial, just kind of figure out how to do it. So I thought it'd be cool to make a video about it. So today I'm going to show you how to make a trick button using just HTML and CSS. And then we're also going to do one with JavaScript that's going to be a little more complex and be a little bit cooler. We'll see how it goes. All right, so let's get into the first button, which is just going to be HTML and CSS. It's going to be pretty simple, but I thought it was really funny and I'd like to share it with you. So first, let's go into VS Code, get your folder ready, name it whichever one you want. Let's create a new file. We'll call it index.html. And let's get the template laid out. And let's call it, give it a title of My Trick CSS Button. Give yourself a little bit of space in your body. And the first thing that we want to create is the button. Normally, I'd recommend to give it an ID or a class so you can change it and alter it how you want. But since all we're going to do for this one, we're just going to do a button. We're just going to leave it called button because there's only one. And it'll be easy to call it in CSS. Click me. All right. And then let's go back up here to the top. We need to connect our CSS. You guys call it styles or style? I usually say styles.css. Let's go up here and let's create the styles.css page. And let's begin the fun. First thing, let's call the button. Actually, let's fire up the live server on here. See that we got our button right here. You can position it however you want. We're just going to keep this one real simple. My cat just jumped up on the table and I'm going to have to get him down. I'm going to give this button, we're going to give this button on hover. And what that does is going to allow that when we hover over the button, it's going to do something. What it's going to do, and this is super simple. I thought it was so cool when I figured this out. And obviously you can decorate the button, you can do whatever you want, but we're just keeping it simple for this video. And this is what I did, is I set up a hover effect over the button with CSS. And I gave it a margin. And that margin of 250 pixels, right? Or you can do it however you want, margin left, sorry. Just learn something new. You can do margin or margin left, however you want. But if you're watching right now, when you go to hover over the button, it's a little glitchy. It's CSS and HTML, but it moves and you can never actually click the button. I added some stuff and it like laughed at you and made a noise. But we'll get into that. But this is how you can make a trick button using just HTML and CSS. Super simple. Now let's get into the next one. Going to show you how to make one using JavaScript, and we're going to make this one a little more complex, a little more fun. Let's get into it. All right, this one we're going to try to make it a little bit more difficult. Let's get into it. So I created a folder called trick button. Let's give it an index.html. And then let's give that the boilerplate, if you will. We will call this one JS. Trick button. Doesn't matter what you call it. All right, let's go ahead and link it with our styles.css file for when we create that. And also let's go down here and we want to connect it connect it to our future JS file, and we will call that script.js. All right, and now we will create our button. And this time we will give it an ID, and we will call it my button. And we will put click me inside of that button. Let's go ahead and bust open this live server. Oh, wrong page. All right, and now we got the live server going so we can watch the button. And this is actually what helped me when I was going to self-taught route, is that working with the front end was a lot easier for me to grasp by myself because I could watch everything happen in real time. All right, next thing we want to do is we want to create our styles.css file. Within that file, we're going to give this a little bit, I'm going to make this one a little bit nicer than the last one. I'm going to make it a flex display. I want to align, I can't spell. We want to align the items to the center. Justify the content to the center. As you can see, our button just now moved to the center of the page, but it's still at the top, and we would like it to be in the middle. Let's give it a height. It's looking good. Now we got it in the center of the page. And this next thing, we're going to do this because we want to make sure the button doesn't leave the actual page. So it's kind of like guardrails for the button. That'll just make sure there's no overflow. It can't go out of bounds, if you will. All right, and I think that will be enough for the body, and let's work on the button. Since we use an ID, we need to use the hashtag my button. Hashtags pick IDs, dots pick classes. Body's an element, so you don't need a hashtag or a dot. A period, dot, whatever. It's an element. You can just call elements because we're working with the body. All right, let's give it a background color. And I like Tech Dad Green, so let's try to get that. You can look up any color that you would like. I found this one. I kind of like it. It's like Tech Dad Green. Goes with my channel. Let's stick with it. We don't want it to have a border. I don't like how that looks. Actually, I do kind of like how that looks. Let's leave the border. I like it. All right. Color of white. Boom. Now the click me is white. A little bit of padding. I never know what to pick here. I'm not a designer. 15. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do 32. Make it a little bit longer. All right. Now let's align everything to the center. Let's decorate. We want no tech decoration. All right. We want to give it a display of an inline block. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's do 16. Yeah, I like that. Cat's in there fighting. All right, what else? Let's see. Oh, let's make the cruiser cursor pointer. That way when you hover over it, becomes a hand. I like that. I don't know. I think it's cool. All right. I think that's it. All right, so let's go in here and let's create our JavaScript file. We called it script.js, I think. Let's make sure. Follow the link. There we are. And now to begin the JavaScript. I think that's a pretty button if I don't say so myself. All right, first thing we want to do, let's make a variable. And we're just going to call it button because we're going to have to call this multiple times. And this will make it easier. Document, let's get the element by the ID. Kind of brain fart. What do we call it? My button. All right, that way, now that we have a variable for our button, so we can pick it every time we need it, it'll make things look cleaner later on. Now let's add a event listener. I think it's called a mouse over. Yep, mouse over. And then what function do we want to happen when you hover over our button? Let's create another. Let's create another variable. This will be the button width. And what we're going to do here is just kind of give the computer a way to measure how big the button is, if that makes sense. So first, we're going to do the width. And that is going to equal, I think it's offset. Yeah, here we go. Offset width. Right, and this just helps keep track of how big the button is, because what we're going to do, I think is really cool. If I'd have done this early in my coding journey, I would have been super amazed, but I'm super excited for this one. All right, now we need the button height. And yeah, I mean, you can name these whatever, just know what they name because you got to use them later. And this one will be button dot offset height. I'm getting excited. Now we need to do one for the window size. So window width equals window dot offset width. Boom. And then you know what? I don't want to do this last one. So let's just go ahead and copy and paste. And then we're going to do window. Right, that way it can keep track of the size of the window and the size of the button. I think that's everything that we need for there. Now we are going to do the randomizer, and this is how it's going to pick the X and Y axis that it's going to put the button at. So when it's moving around, it can go in different spots. And then let's do the random, let's call it random X. And then that's going to equal math dot random. All right. And that's just going to randomize it. And then we need to multiply that. Right? Because we need to make sure that it knows the size and it doesn't push our button off the page or out of bounds or anything like that. So when it's giving us random numbers, it knows to subtract these two things because we need to leave room for the width. And can you guess which one's next? And that's the height. Random y equals random. All right. And then the same thing, we need to do the window height, right? Minus button height. All right. Now the next one is we're going to, whatever number they pick for the random, we need to add px to it so it knows to move in pixels. So button style left equals random x plus px. And that's just saying, hey, when you do this, add a px at the end of that number. I don't have to rewrite this again. And then we'll call this one right. And we'll call this one top. And we'll change this to y. Oh, capital Y. Still not working. So we need, I think we need to change the position to absolute. I did something. All right, let's see. Let's refresh it. All right, so we made a mistake. I had to figure out what the issue was because as you can see, it's not working. And that's because we did an offset in the window, and really we needed an inner because the window is the out of bounds, and the button, the offset is how you measure the button. Sorry about that. Like I said, now it works. As you can see, let's move me over here. Now you can never click the button and it'll bounce around and you can't get it. Pretty cool. Pretty excited about it. Sorry about the mishap. You got to try different things. You got to learn. You can't be afraid to make mistakes. And that's a good point of it. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. I had so much fun making the trick button when I was in early learning, and it was kind of cool to do a new one, an updated one with some JavaScript now that I have a little bit more knowledge and understand of these things a little bit better. I hope you had fun following along. If you make something cool with your trick button or you have any updates to it, please share it with me in the comments or shoot me an email at thetechdad87@gmail.com. And I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.